So it's been a good week or so since I've recorded anything, right? And there's a couple of reasons for that. Obviously, one, mostly getting adjusted to, life stuff. Got another job. I've just been going back and forth between that and really getting, attuned and adjusted to that. I got to take time with that, definitely in a better spot now. And two, obviously main channel stuff, with the release of the Switch 2, I've had to do a lot of main channel stuff, regarding Pokemon Scarlet and Violet with the major update, had to see what was going on with that. And three, and most importantly, keep your mind on this one, I have had Deltarune brain rot so bad that it has completely overwritten everything on any of my For Yous, whether it be TikTok, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, whatever. It is just Deltarune. I have the worst Deltarune brain rot right now, and it is infuriating because none of my friends play Deltarune. I have one buddy, and he has not played it yet, and I'm like, oh my god, I have nobody to talk about this with because I've had severe Deltarune brain rot because chapters 3 and 4 were so good and so jam-packed, and the shift in tone from the writing in these chapters was so major that Deltarune has completely just, I'm just gonna put it down, I'm gonna lay it down right now. Deltarune has surpassed Undertale for me, and it's not close. It is not close whatsoever. Like, don't get me wrong, I still adore Undertale, but Deltarune as a narrative is just so strong now. It's just so good in so many different ways, and that's a testament to how much Toby Fox and his team has grown as developers, as writers, as composers, so that's not a bad thing by any means for his more recent work, or their more recent work, to have surpassed the previous one. That is not a bad thing by any means. So, it is totally okay to feel that way, and that's how I feel. You can argue with me if you want, but that's just, it is what it is, right? So enough rambling. Things that we need to see in Chapter 5 of Deltarune, because I just cannot sit here and just not think about what could possibly happen in Chapter 5, right? Now, of course, this isn't me going off on a crazy tangent thinking about unrealistic things, right? Which is why the first thing I'm going to do before we get into anything else is basically lay down what we're probably not going to be seeing in Chapter 5, right? And the first major thing, right, is probably any major hints when it comes to the end of the prophecy, right? Of course, we may see like hints or anything like that, but we probably still won't know what the end of the prophecy said. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if we just didn't know what the end of the prophecy said until maybe 6, possibly even like the end of the game in Chapter 7, right? That's totally fine. Like, obviously, it's meant, the end of the game is meant to be a surprise, and there's no way, right, that this man, Toby Fox, who had a dream about the ending to a video game so intense that he had to start developing a game to lead up to that ending, no way we get any major hints on that, like smack dab in the middle of the series, right? Or the chapters, whatever. So I don't think we're gonna get any major hints on the prophecy, and I have just come to terms with that. I've given up on any hope that we're gonna see anything major in regards to the prophecy, and if we do, I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I'm not gonna hold out hope for something like that, because that's like the most important part of all of this, like how everything's gonna wrap up because of this like foretold prophecy. Like, we've been learning about this, very specific prophecy. We've learned about, oh, this is, by the way, not spoiler free. I'll make sure to put a little tag at the beginning. Editor Soul, that's on you, but this is not spoiler free. So if you haven't played chapters 3 and 4 yet, go do that immediately. And if you haven't played Deltarune yet, what are you doing here? But regardless, I lost my train of thought completely. But, oh, no, I didn't. We've been learning about all of these different things, and how, everything plays into whatever, how Ralsei plays into everything, his role, and why he has so much knowledge about what's going to happen, and why he, refuses to tell people, or any, specifically Kris and Susie, until like the very last minute, or Susie being her, her situation in which she is able to, like, one of the most important things about Susie that you get right off the bat is the fact that with her, she is the only one that can completely overwrite your decisions and make other things happen, right? So that is probably the most important aspect, right? So, you know, we're probably, long story short, I can't see us getting anything major on the end of the prophecy, right? And then the second major thing, and the last major thing that I'm going to mention for now, is that we're probably not going to get, for chapter 5 specifically, we probably won't get anything too huge on, like, the identity of the knight, right? Because I know, like, now more than ever, now that we've actually met and fought the knight, there's no way in hell we learn anything critical about the knight's identity in chapter 5. I just don't see that happening. If we do, grandiose. That would be absolutely amazing, and I'd be super happy about it. And if we do, again, I think it would probably be at the ass end of the chapter. And it'd be something very minute. It wouldn't be like a very obvious clue. It'd be like, it would be something for us to feed on for a while before we actually learn what the knight's deal is, right? If anything, we'll probably learn more about the connection between Kris and the knight by the end of chapter 5. We'll know more about that connection. I don't know if that will actually give us any information, like credible information on the identity of the knight, but I'd be very happy about it. And obviously everybody has their suspicions, but long and short of it is, we don't know, you know? And Toby Fox is a clever writer. I don't think it would be that insanely obvious who the knight is, right? I mean, you know, it's pointing in that direction, obviously, but it's too obvious, you know? So, I don't know. We'll have to see with that. But regardless, I don't think we're going to get anything too major on the identity of the knight. But we may get a little bit of a hint on on its relationship with Kris, right? So, that's that, right? Now getting more into the fun stuff. Kind of wanted to get into the fun stuff first before we get into the serious stuff, because obviously, like, there's a lot we're looking forward to, and the little bit that we do know about chapter 5 is that it's most likely going to revolve around the festival, right? And that's been built up for the last couple of days in Deltarune time. For us, it's been freaking years, but they've been building up to the festival for a good amount of time now, and so obviously we're wondering, like, you know, what is this going to be like? What is the vibes going to be like? Like, what is there going to be, like, a major incident here? You know, and I have to imagine there's probably going to be a dark world opened up there. That's my guess. But before any of that happens, there's a couple of things I do want to see occur at this festival, right? And that's obviously, you know, main gang shenanigans. Obviously, mostly, I just want to see, if we're being so honest, these two have my heart. I need to see Noelle and Susie just having a good time. With or without Kris there, whatever needs to happen with that, whatever. If Kris is there, cool. That means we're there and we're participating. But, like, you know, I just need to see some fun shenanigans before we go into an absolute hellscape, whatever's about to happen next. Again, if this dark world gets opened up in the middle of the festival, that means the entire town is going to be there, and Noelle is going to realize pretty much off rip that everything that happened in chapter 2 was not a dream. And, you know, that's going to be a lot of explaining, but, you know, we've seen that Noelle, I don't even want to bring up weird root, but we have seen that Noelle is extremely capable and very powerful, probably more powerful than Ralsei when it comes to magic, right? Actually, no doubt about it, more powerful than Ralsei when it comes to magic, right? So, you know, obviously she might get a little more involved. That would be really, really cool. I feel like, you know what, I'll throw this in there too. You know, if we do get a dark world opened up in the midst of the festival, then I would definitely love to see Noelle as a party member, you know, even if it means we have 4 party members, that would be great. I don't see that happening. Obviously, she's not replacing Ralsei, or I don't know. Well, I mean, I doubt it, but, you know, we'll see what happens. It really depends on the circumstances and things like that. But one of two things is going to happen. Either they open up the dark world in the midst of the festival, or while the festival is happening, we take the time to sneak around, get all the codes so that we could go into the bunker and we can go into that dark world so that we could save Undyne, right? That's where my thought process is. But before any of that happens, regardless of how it plays out, I just want to see festival shenanigans, and I want to see a little bit of fun happen beforehand. I want to get all the fun and goofy, fun shenanigans out the way, right? Secondly, I have to imagine that they're gonna have to talk about it or bring it up in some format, but there's no way Toriel just doesn't bring up whatever the hell was going on with Sans, right? Just her kid and his friend, high schoolers are out at night, just nowhere to be found, but she's at home wine drunk with some rando. As far as Kris is concerned, that just, extremely irresponsible parenting, and so the night before, but then again, we'll have to see what happens, because the last scene we did get was Kris climbing out of the window, and Susie might still be there. Who knows? Well, if you do normal route anyway. But I mean, if we end up at the festival on in the next day, whatever, cool, great. I need to see what's going on with Toriel. I want to see where she's at with that and see if she actually explains anything in regards to what happened the night prior. Because that was messed up, man. That was crazy. I mean, I guess she's stressed, but man, to just, after the night before, by the way, where her tires got slashed and your kid is completely just nowhere to be found, you're getting wine drunk at home. All right, man. Crazy stuff, that. But regardless, I need to see what's going on with that. And then lastly, this is the most unserious out of all of them. I need to see Papyrus at the festival. Where's that boy at? What? Sans has been bringing up his brother forever. He's got it. Unless he has some major role in the main story, which... Would he? I doubt it, but I don't know. Regardless, I need to see Papyrus at this festival or something. Why is Papyrus so hidden away? Why are we gatekeeping our boy? What's going on, man? I need to see him basketball shoulders and spaghetti in hand. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. Bring my boy out. Now, with that being said, we get to the serious stuff. This is I want to see at least one of these things heavily acknowledged in some way, shape, or form. This one isn't listed here, but specifically, let's start with Carol. One of the most interesting aspects that was in and out as soon as she got there in chapter 4, right? Completely new, aspect and new, I don't want to say antagonist yet because we don't actually know, but a completely new entity, a new force introduced in chapter 4 and wasn't even there for a full 5 minutes. And that was that. It's okay, we've known about Carol, we've heard this and that, and we saw the weird interaction between Toriel and Rudy at the church when Toriel refused to call Carol by her name and only referred to her strictly as Rudy's wife, right? That's not normal. That is extremely strange, right? People, when you respect somebody, you refer to them by name. Toriel doesn't have any respect for Carol for whatever reason, and maybe that has to do with what's going on with Asgore. At the very least, if we're not going to get any major information as to why Kris contacted her, assuming that was the case, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but, assuming that is the case, why Kris contacted her specifically, and what her situation is in regards to whatever's happened with Rudy and all that. There's just, we need to see what her situation is. Does she have any knowledge about the dark world? What's up? So, yeah, Carol is a major player in the game now, and we need to see more about her as soon as humanly possible, because... yeah, there's no way we could go much longer without knowing too much more about what's going on there. Especially because Susie made the threat toward Carol, the threat, quote unquote, to take Noelle to the festival. So, yeah, I'm sure she's going to want to step in and be critical. Shoot, maybe we break into Noelle's house. Maybe the next Dark World opens up at Noelle's house, because I don't know, man. There's just so many potential factors at play here, but we gotta know what's going on with her, right? And I'm so genuinely curious, right? Now for all the things that I actually have listed here. First thing is a hint to Dessa's whereabouts, right? I could definitely see this also serving as the glimpse as to what we get at the end of the next chapter. Maybe some sort of little hello or something, and maybe Kris, Susie hear that, and we could see Des somewhere trapped in a dark world that we cannot reach, somewhere far, right? I want to see that, right? And you know what? We're just going to go ahead and get into theory territory as well here. There's no reason in hiding it. You know, most people are definitely under the impression that Des is the Knight in some way, shape, or form, or very heavily involved in that. And it's very possible. You know, obviously they've made very, very many like points as to like how it could be. And, you know, it's made plain to see that there is made to be some form of relation between Des and the Knight, with the whole, like, you know, in chapter 3 when we first fight it, you know, the baseball or the baseball bat turning into the blade, you know, the horns and things like that, you know, design wise, you know, Des definitely has some relation to it. If it's her, I don't know, couldn't tell you. But I don't necessarily, again, it's too obvious, you know, it's too obvious, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I just need to know, like, get a general idea of, like, maybe what could have possibly happened to Des, maybe something that, you know, gives us a hint as to what maybe happened between Des and her family and things like that, where she might have went, or what happened to her specifically, you know, why Carol is so adamant about, you know, Susie not touching the guitar, and, you know, the room being kept in tip-top shape, you know, as if Carol is waiting for Des to return, you know. I don't know. I just so much we should definitely be seeing about that. But, I mean, I don't know. Again, I would love to just see a hint. I don't need a full fact drop. I just need a hint. That's all, you know. And if it is, you know, leading to Des being like, okay, cool, whatever, that's fine. That makes sense. But I feel like there could definitely be more to that, is all I'm saying. So, we'll definitely play that by ear, right? Speaking of the holiday family, we definitely should get a little more info, especially since this is going to be so... I'm going to cry if we visit the hospital during the festival or something, and Noel is just sitting there like, oh, I wish you could go with us, Dad, but he's too sick or something. I'm tearing up just thinking about that. What is up with Rudy? What is bro's condition? What's up with that? Because he's been in the hospital since chapter 1. Since frame 1, since we met him, he's been in the hospital. And the most he's been up was in chapter 4 at the beginning, and he went right back. And he was very clearly tired from standing up for too long and interacting with people for too long and just trying to have a good time. It exhausted the hell out of him. What is Buddy's condition? What is going on with that? I need to know. And we're going to get to this in a moment, but given the fact that Asgore is clearly guilty about something, and he's like working with the Holiday family, like he's been at their house cleaning up and things like that. He's probably the one that's been preserving Des's room and all that. And he's always the one delivering a bunch of flowers to Rudy. And Rudy feels guilty about that because he's just like, why are you doing that? Like, you can't afford that. You are getting paid pennies probably from my wife. Like, what's going on with that, you know? So, I don't know. Maybe we could get some kind of idea on what Rudy's condition is, what the quote-unquote crap they found inside of him was. It could be some form of, like, I hate to even put it this way, but monster cancer of some sort. I don't really know. That's really sad to think about, but obviously, you know, it's something that's keeping him completely bedridden and exhausted to the point where he just can't even do anything for long periods of time, which, you know, it sounds kind of similar to a degree, you know? So it's just kind of, you know, my curiosity is just eating at me, like, what is going on with him? Because he's such a good dad. Like, he's such a fun character. Like, I want to get to know him even more than we have, but, you know, I like him a lot as a character, and I really want to know what's going on with him, and if it is involved with, like, whatever happened with him, if it is involved with Dark World stuff. Like, if something happened to him without him even realizing, and he got caught up in Dark World, and maybe Asgore like knew that, or I almost said Asriel, that's crazy, but maybe Asgore knew something, and that's why he feels so guilty and stuff, and that's why he's like helping out the Holiday house, because maybe he knows exactly what did happen to Des and what happened to Rudy, you know. So I don't know. I hope we get some more information on what his condition is and what's going to happen with that, and maybe if we can help fix it or something, because, you know, if we could get him to the Dark World, maybe Ralsei can heal it. Who knows? I don't know. Doubt that. But, you know, just something to keep an eye on. And of course, speaking of Asgore, what what did bro do, right? Because we got a lot of information on his situation during this most recent chapter, right? And it's a lot, right? Firstly, you know, his position he was like captain of the police, and, you know, Alphys, in her own words, called the police eye candy, obviously referring to Undyne. But joking aside, she essentially said that the police wasn't really there to do anything other than just kind of, you know, be a force. Like, they're not really, like, there's not really a lot of crazy crime happening in their town, you know, in that city. So it's like, the police aren't really there to do anything crazy. But the fact that something happened with Asgore, the captain of the police, to get himself disbarred or whatever, is kind of insane to think about. Like, what could have possibly happened with that, to where he went from, like, chief of police to maid, essentially? Like, where did that, what was the fall off there, you know? And even, like, so we know that, you know, we have a little bit more information on what happened beforehand, but we don't know what exactly occurred to put him in this situation. But we do know, you know, he's constantly delivering flowers to Rudy. You know, he's still trying to get on Toriel's good side. He wants to bring the family back together again. He really wants to visit Asriel and the family when Asriel gets back from college to visit and things like that. And, you know, he's gleefully doing everything he can to help out the Holiday household by cleaning and things like that. You know, just, you know, taking orders as Carol dishes them out. So we have a better idea of where he's at, as opposed to just taking care of his flowers, you know? And then obviously one of the easiest things one of the easier things to miss, but like one of the most important aspects of, you know, Asgore in chapter 4 was the fact that, you know, mumbling to himself, you know, he was talking about everything that happened, or he was just kind of mumbling like he wanted to fix things, and, you know, once everybody understands what actually truly happened, maybe they could be a family again, and maybe he could get back to his life, because his life kind of got ripped from him because of whatever happened, right? But the most important aspect was the fact that he was holding a black crystal, black shard, one way or another, right? These things are directly involved with Dark World. No doubt about that. There's no doubt anymore that Asgore knows about the Dark World and is involved somehow, right? But what we don't know or understand is how and what. Because what is he doing with a crystal? Why does he have that? Those crystals are exclusively given to secret bosses, right? I mean, yeah, one way or another, those crystals are involved with the Dark World, and usually we get something involved with that from the secret bosses. We got one from Jevil, we got one from Spanton, and we got one from the Dark Knight, and in the most recent chapter, obviously in chapter 4, we got one from Gerson when doing that secret boss, right? Still gotta work on that. Still gonna beat that. But is that, you know, could that be a hint that maybe he'll get involved with the Dark World in the next chapter and we might have to fight him for it? Who is to say? But, you know, he made it very clear himself that he is in possession of one. So his knowledge of the Dark World could definitely be there. One way or another, he's involved with the Dark World, whether he knows it or not, or completely even understands it, right? So I'm super curious about that. Desperately curious about that, right? After that, of course, this one's a little, like, kind of like off the rails a little bit. What is Ralsei? Because we got a hint, a small, we didn't even get a hint, right? We have no idea what Ralsei is, right? At the beginning of chapter 3, when Susie was trying to get Ralsei to go to the festival with them, Ralsei made it very clear that he couldn't because of what the Dark World is and what Darkners are. He explained that Darkners are essentially just items from the real world or from the world of light that, you know, when put into the darker side, you know, the dark world, take form, take shape, and take personality, right? So we know about Lancer being a card, or we know about Lancer being the card, we know about Queen being a laptop and things like that. antenna being the TV and so on and so forth. What is Ralsei's deal? Because we still don't know why. He's a prince from the dark. We don't know anything about his princeliness or anything like that, like where, you know, any of his family is, like why he doesn't have any kind of like royal guard or anything like that. You know, we don't know anything about his prior situation, meeting up with them, but you know, and also what, you know, what his deal is with the prophecy is. But to top it off, I think the most interesting thing, right, that I feel like I haven't seen a lot of people talk about, I'm sure people have been talking about it for years now, I just didn't see it, is the fact that Ralsei is the only Darkener that can freely move between any of these spaces without needing any form of help from Kris. Like, you know, obviously in chapter 3, you know, we had like Lancer and Rules with us because they were with Kris at the time, you know, in his pocket. You know, he kind of carries them around. That makes sense. But like, Ralsei just kind of pops up. Like, is it something that Kris is carrying that we don't know about? We don't know what it could be. That's the thing. So it's just like, and you know, and to top it off, like the fact that, you know, everybody so far has acknowledged that Ralsei looks like Azrael, you know, and that makes sense. You know, he's a goat. He's got the figure for it. Why does he look like Azrael? You know, what's up with that? Who is Ralsei? You know, and obviously, you know, it's Azrael's name rearranged as that kind of goes, but like, what is bro's deal, and what is he in the light world? Because why is he able to move freely like that, but also have so much knowledge and importance, and also, you know, have the, you know, the similarities to Azrael, apparently, you know, what's up with that? Because here's the thing, they definitely did that on purpose, to where in chapter 3, Toriel was completely knocked out. Because if she saw Ralsei, she'd be like, what is it? What's up? What are you doing here? Are you my son? Like, what's up? You know? So there's a lot to think about there. It's a lot to consider. I just don't think it's an insane possibility that we could actually get a little bit of info as to what Ralsei is and what his deal is, because, you know, middle of the game, like, we got to get some kind of a glimpse, you know. And Ralsei did say that he was gonna be a little more honest with Susie, with Kris, about what's going on. And so, you know, they definitely all want to take him to the festival, so maybe they can, you know what they're taking to the festival, so Ralsei could be present in some way, shape, or form. Maybe. I don't know. I just don't think it's insane to maybe get a little more info on what Ralsei is next chapter, especially because he played such a critical role in both of these chapters in terms of development and things like that, you know. So I want to get more about Ralsei. After that, of course, we need to dip more into Kris's past. And don't get me wrong, we did such a good job in both chapters 3 and 4 of dipping into Kris's past. We learned so much about who they are as a person, what they were like growing up. They were a freaking menace to society. And so it makes a lot of sense that they really, like, this chapter, specifically 4 for me, it really made a lot of sense that Kris acts the way that they do when removing the heart. Like, we get to see the real Kris, right? And they've made it very, very abundantly clear, like, yeah, this isn't some, like, soulless, like, thing or whatever, like some monster or whatever. We, the player, are manipulating Kris's body. And Kris is the one actually ripping us out of their soul and doing things like that, right? Because we, you know, when going around the holiday household, you know, Kris was doing their thing to just get a break from you, right? They just wanted to take a break, and they were somewhere familiar, so they had to get you out the moment you let your guard down, right? That's why they were drinking milk and playing the piano beautifully. And despite what we know about them and how they acted as a child, they definitely have a care for a lot of the people that they know, mostly for Susie and Ralsei. Now that they've gotten to know them, they've developed a very special bond with them. And even in Weird Root, when you mess with Noelle, Kris despises you, wants you dead, but can't do anything about it for whatever reason, because you are part of a bigger picture that they can't do anything about, right? So Kris has their own plans going on, and it's so strange to be sharing a body with this person that clearly has their own agenda, right? So it's like, we would love to just know a little bit more about Kris, and I feel like we could definitely get that going into the festival, getting a little bit of alone time with Susie and Noelle, and, because Noelle did hint at the Holiday household, at her house when talking to Susie, that Kris was acting strange, but like only in recent times have they been acting strange, and even in her dream when meeting back up with Kris, they were acting how they are now, which is the strange way with us manipulating their body, I hate saying it that way, wow, but you get the idea. Maybe we could learn a bit more about Kris through Noelle and what their history was, what their relationship was when they kind of like divided a little bit, when they grew apart a little bit. I would love to know more about that. Okay. And maybe we could get a little bit more information as to why Kris is such an edgelord. Why do they walk like that? What is that like crazy limp thing they got going on? Like, they're not hurt. They're fine, but they just have that creepy way of moving. It's insane. There is also the fact that in Weird Roots, from what I've seen and what I understand, and feel free to correct me on any information that I have in regards to anything in this video, but from my understanding, if you are playing Weird Roots, there's a point in time the night before where Kris goes over, without your knowledge, I'm sure like the player is locked in the cage or something, and they go over to Noelle's house and actually talk to Noelle as themselves, and they're apologizing and being the old Kris for a moment, right? And it's like they don't want to hurt anybody, but doing stuff like opening portals and working with the Knight and Carol, if that's what's actually happening, somebody's bound to get hurt, right? I mean, look at Undyne getting taken by the Knight. Like, this is because of whatever's happening with Kris, whatever's going on with Kris, So we got to delve more into that. I'm sure we will. I have no doubt that we will, but we got to know. And then lastly, I just want to see a little bit more of Noelle playing into whatever her role is here. Because again, Noelle is proven to be very powerful, a much more powerful mage than Ralsei, and things like that. Whatever her connection is with the prophecy, she's got to have one, right? And again, like I said, I don't think we're going to get anything major on the prophecy, especially its ending, but we could definitely see if Noelle is the one that actually genuinely has a role in the prophecy, right? Because it's prophesized, or not prophesized, it's theorized that the Weird Root is the player forcing Noelle into her role in the prophecy, which is why she's so powerful, which is why she gets insane spells like Snowgrave, right? To be able to pull off stuff like that, she's bound to be somebody important to the prophecy, to whatever all of this is leading up to, right? So how are we going to get that? Because Noelle's got to be a little more present when it comes to Dark World stuff, and we haven't seen her, fight or being, involved in the Dark World in 2 full chapters now, So I don't know, man. There's just so much we got to know in regards to her. And then obviously, it's made very clear, or at least theorized, that Susie is not the second major player. She is not the second prophesized hero. She doesn't realize that, but something tells me that Ralsei knows, and that other forces are very much aware. Maybe even Kris, who knows? But what is the roles here? Because if Susie isn't the hero, what is her deal? And obviously we got a lot of info from like Gerson and stuff like that, explaining what she could be, and what like she means to the prophecy, because she still has an important role, but she's not the hero, or at least not the primary hero. Or maybe she's something else entirely, maybe something even bigger than the hero. I'd put money on that, I just love Susie so much. She's so cool, man. I love Susie. But I want to know more. I really, really, really want to know more. So yeah, I rambled on for half an hour. I think this is a good way to get me back in the video making, because I've had such bad Deltarune brain rot. I really wanted to talk about it, and I'm sorry that this is a ramble and not like an organized video or anything like that, but I feel like, you know, this is kind of the best I could do right now, because I'm not a heavy theorist. I'm not like, you know, I like theorizing, and I love watching theories and seeing theories, which is why I feel like I have a decent understanding of the story like I do, but at the end of the day, you know, I'm not the one to put the theory in your ear to begin with, you know. I'm just here for that awesome story. I really am locked in on that story. So we'll have to see how things play out, but I'm really excited for 2026 and Deltarune Chapter 5, because that's just, oh my god, this story has taken such a drastic turn, and I am so insanely excited to see where it goes. You know, I'm no matter where it goes, I'm here for the ride. Simple as that. So that's how the cookie crumbles, I guess. But with that being said, I'm passing the mic over to you guys, and I want you guys to tell me everything that you're thinking in the comment section below. Are you in agreement that we could see a lot of this stuff going into Chapter 5? Are you really excited to potentially see some of this stuff maybe tapped into rather, and you want to hear more about all of this information? You want to see some of this stuff fleshed out a little bit? Or are you on the opposing side? Not only do you not want to see any of this, none of this stuff is likely to come to fruition in Chapter 5. You feel like it's too soon, and we probably won't see that. Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I'm always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do exactly that. I'd like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!